Hello, everybody. I'm going to be your cannabis guy. I'm still trying to figure it out, too. It's weird. I can't believe I'm even here doing this. So let's get right into it. Cannabis must be weird. What's that like? On screen, you can see this is how the supply chain works in California. At this point, anytime the product moves to one of these steps, from a compliance perspective, it has to get reported back up to the state in the data format that they define. That format could change next week, in 2 months, 3 months. So we're at the mercy of them in terms of data management. The other thing to note about this slide is that it says California supply chain. Nowhere does it say United States supply chain. If this slide was for Nevada, Michigan, Illinois, it would look radically different. As it goes state by state, the supply chain could be state-owned. It could be a nonprofit model. It could have, less competition and be a vertical integration state. So, it's just chaos at scale. Cannabis is a roller coaster. This is the aggregate of all the US cannabis stocks since 2019. If you look at where the spike is for COVID, that was more of a life jacket. We expect to lose a lot of our industry over the next 2 quarters just because this is how new markets work. Extreme oscillations in supply and demand, and people run out of money in new markets. My ride's a little different. I've worked at 4 different cannabis companies over the last 4 years. That sounds extreme, but that's actually very normal in our industry, given how turbulent it is. My first job was for a luxury CPG brand that was vertically integrated. It was run by Harvard MBA types. They all thought, hey, these cannabis people, they're stupid, they're stoned, we can smash this. And so they were running very much the Belvedere model of luxury cannabis. And so they grew all their cannabis in an indoor facility, which is very expensive from an OpEx perspective. And ultimately, they laid off 35 people. I was part of that, but I got lucky because in our industry, every license owner in the state who has a cannabis company, their contact information is public. And so I also just proposed to my wife and had about 4 weeks before a meeting with her parents. And there's no way I was going to meet them unemployed after proposing for a wife. And so I ran an automated email campaign with the database from California for the owners of the licenses, and I wound up getting a job in 2 weeks. And so thank you, MailChimp, and a good list, because I was right back in the game. I joined a cultivation company, and so it's here where I learned everything from seed to sale. So growing the plant, trimming the plant, drying the plant, packaging it, processing it, putting it on the truck, and then also learning that cannabis is still very much just a commodities market. It's agriculture. At the top of the stream, it's just a commodity. But in this area, at the time, the price of cannabis per pound was about $1,500. Today, it's about $400. This is also where all the illicit kind of gray market activity lives. And ultimately, I wanted to be closer to the CPG and the brand space, because in the long term, the brands are going to be the winners. It's how alcohol works, too. Very similar. And so I moved on and got a job in distribution, working for a very traditional distribution model. They buy the product from the brand, they put it in their warehouse, they have the trucks, they have a sales team, they deliver it to all the retail accounts in the state. And I slowly started seeing, 80-20 rule, only 20% of our brands are making all the money here. And this is a room of all very fortunate people where we have the data, we have a crystal ball that gives us a gut instinct a little bit better than most. And I could see that 20%, we're all gonna leave. And so that's exactly what happened. And so, I'm getting out of this model. And so I found Petalfast, where I'm at today, which just focuses on B2B sales and marketing. And that is a very hyper niche, small part of the pie, and that's all they do. And so one thing I learned from all of these is just that any cannabis industry model is hard. It is a startup industry with startup companies. Everything's chaos. There's no way of making this easy for anybody. So you might ask, how is Sam still doing this? Why did he go to Petalfast? After 4 years of this, is he a masochist? This thing's not easy at all. But for Petalfast, focus yields quality. We just have a sales team, we have a field and trade team, we manage them, that's it, and they execute. And so we also thrive in competitive markets, which is what we're in. We all know that when times are tough, who do you hammer? sales. And so for that reason, our phone is ringing off the hook with people who need more sales support. And so that's what we do with the brands today. We also add a touch of humanization to break through the noise. The in-person sales team is the only way you can do B2C and B2B in this market. There's just too much going on at the retail level, whether it's people who are vendors that are startups trying to get attention to get their product to succeed. There's about 600 brands in California right now trying to break through. You need that human element to have that relationship to actually make sales happen. And for that, I was excited about Petalfast. They also have the vanity of lower compliance hurdles. We don't own any cannabis product. We don't have trucks. We don't have to worry about crossing state lines with anything because we're asset light. We don't even have buildings. We just have people who are hired for sales that go in and partner with the brands. And then also, this was my opportunity to learn about alcohol industry. I knew nothing about it, but the foundation of this company is rooted in alcohol. And so in comes Interdimensional Insights. I've never heard of them before, but now I'm here, I'm embracing it, and it's accelerating change in our industry. And so a snapshot from a high level of where we are at, with digital and cannabis is we don't even have Google or Amazon yet. So by that I mean we can't do targeted pay-per-click ads on Google or any Google product, which means our digital ad spend has like no ROI. But someday it will, and what that means is if you're a niche digital cannabis agency that just does digital marketing ads, you'll probably go out of business when that day comes. So how do you plan for that? Amazon doesn't support cannabis products yet either, but someday it might. So in 5, 10 years, when Amazon turns on and they say, hey, we're gonna sell cannabis products, what does that do to everybody? We have heavy compliance limitations, as I showed you in the supply chain slide, that just make everything more difficult. Every step of the way in the cannabis journey, doesn't matter what department you're in, you probably have to work 30 times harder to make a simple task work. And then as I mentioned before, company contact data is public for the licensed owners. And this creates like a new layer of spam around all the junk mail you already get. So triple that of people trying to hustle you because your information's out there, just for the licensed owners. And so people ask me, what's it like being a digital guy in cannabis? And ultimately, it's just hardcore data normalization. When we have compliance systems per state, country, county, we have different order systems per partner that we work with. There's no uniform nomenclature in cannabis culture. We might call it a joint in California, but in Iowa, they might call it a scooter stick, and we have to annotate that in the SKU and somehow make it all match up. We also have rampant innovation. So every week there must be a new category. How do we deal with that? How do we clean that data and make it work with what we have? And so really our item master are just in debt every second, every day. And so my favorite analogy is if California is a hot dog and Kansas is a banana, I spend every day trying to make hot dog equal banana. My son will love that someday. And so I hate drug lords. Not only are they a bad group of people, but they ruin the wholesale market data. And so it doesn't matter if you're at the top of the stream talking about wholesale pounds and wholesale flower from the farms. It doesn't matter if you're a retail shop. There's nothing stopping in the eyes of the state someone from walking in, buying the product at mass, and then taking it to another state where it's prohibited and selling it at a premium. And because of that, all of our third-party market data is pretty wonky. You can't really trust it. You can't track buyer behavior yet. So what does that mean for us? We love our primary data. This is how we feel about our primary data. It's our baby. We've only had it for 2 years, so think about that. We can't go back that far. We can't forecast that much, but we have to nurture it, love it, take care of it, and enter Dimensional Insights. So together with Dimensional Insights, we're building out CannaBI as our platform. We love it because we're capitalizing on the existing data models from the alcohol industry. They're pretty one-to-one. We also know that this was already adopted by the beverage industry, and where we're lucky is bulk of our sales team come from the beverage industry, and they see this and they have familiarity, and it accelerates adoption, which is always the hardest part in tech. How do we get people to use this thing? And so what a vanity to bring in a workforce that already knows the tool. We also run a low-no systems architecture by design. I think we only have 6 systems we have turned on right now, and I don't want one more, because as we scale very fast, I don't want to pay engineers to maintain things. We won't be able to fix things fast enough, so it's very simplified in our structure. It's also cost-effective. The UX we brought to Cannabis is very much give it to me like I'm 5. It's my favorite analogy for keeping things simple. You can see here in our dashboard and our tiles, every button has a very quick purpose. If I'm a sales rep, I'm enabled just to press that button and get exactly what I want. And like the best example we have is the meeting prep tile. If I click that tile as a sales rep, select the store I'm about to talk to, it's going to show me a dashboard with everything I need to know before I talk to that store, whether it's AR, sales history, all that kind of fun stuff. But that has been our most well-received part of the product. We're just now toying around with My Library. We love it from the perspective of there's a lot of slicing and dicing, right? If I'm a brand manager that's managing 10 brands, each brand probably wants a reporting a different way, different cadence. And so what we're doing now, and this is the example I'm sharing, this is for one brand called Bloom. And so now I have all my Bloom reports that I use with their executive team ready to go as soon as I log in and can quickly access. It also works seamlessly with Program Advisor. And so in market, Program Advisor skinned with the Cannabis has become probably the most well-received tool we show around. Brand partners can't believe this even exists. They look at us like we're from the future. I have to explain to them that this has been around for a while, it's proven, and it's just working out great for us. And so now, there's been a lot of talks today, but I like to think insights happen best through organic conversation. And I have brought a bottle of Artet, which is a cannabis beverage. And there is no CBD or THC in this. This is a sample. This is just so someone can taste and understand what the flavor profile is like. It won't get you high. It hasn't any drugs in it. But I'd love someone from the audience just to come up and have a conversation with me, ask me questions. Someone's going to try this out with me. I've never tasted it. I just know that it's modern design inspired by tradition, is the slug. So does anyone want to come up on stage and ask a question? Come on down. I'll pour you a glass. Uh-oh, is this childproof? It's Sam-proof.
Childproof.
Good question. There we go. Push down is always a thing. There you go.
Thank you.
There I go. Well, cheers, of course.
Well, if I have to do my wine thing?
Well, hold on.
Yes, I need to wait. Cheers.
Cheers, santé,
Thank
kung
you.
pao,
Thank you.
adios.
All right, so question.
Question, go for it.
How do people overcome the stigma of the cannabis industry?
I think, so the number one person would be my mother. When I first entered, entered cannabis, my mom went, "You're going to jail. Are you sure you want to do this with your career?" Bad idea. And now, as it's become more normalized, she's sending me Wall Street Journal articles. She's like, "You're going to get rich. This is like a whole thing." I'm like, whoa, I don't know if I'm going to get rich.
She started circling retirement properties that you can buy for her?
Not yet.
Okay,
It's-
she will.
It's more about my grandson, or her grandson.
Oh, well, yes.
Yeah. But stigma is changing, I think, organically by the economics and ramifications of it as it happens. And people recognize it's a real business. There's a lot of money behind it. And when there's a lot of money behind something, everybody usually follows.
Including the government.
We hope.
Yes. And you talked about the different states. I'm in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
We are strictly medical.
Okay.
And how long do you see that the state lines being a barrier? Forever?
This is a timeline that affects everyone. Right now, there's probably not one cannabis company that's profitable. They're all banking for a day of national legalization, shipping things across state lines, shipping things out of the country. And that timeline is looking like at least 10 to 15 years. And that's a long haul for people burning venture capital. And yeah, it's going to be a minute. So move to California.
I don't know if I can get my husband and daughter on board with that.
Okay.
My daughter for sure, my husband probably not. But cheers, thank you very much.
Cheers.
This is very good. If anybody
Yeah.
else wants to come up.
Who else wants to come on down? All right, buddy, what's your name?
John Lemon.
John Lemon. Sam.
Lippman.
Lippman, nice to meet you. There you go.
So on your graph, you kind of look very volatile, it's going up and down. What do you think is the time frame for where that will kind of level off, and what do you think are like needs to happen for it to level off and kind of be at like a steady increase?
At this point, people just need to go out of business. And it's unfortunate, but that's what happens in new markets. Oh, cheers. Hold on here. I was looking at you, buddy. And if we look at a more micro level, Colorado is a great example of a state that started the adoption process for recreation before everyone else, and it's now a more normalized market. And they had great success. Competition happened there. People went out of business. Had a lot of roll-ups. Are now more of a vertical integration model where it's just like probably a handful, maybe 20 to 30 vertical integrated companies there. I could be misspeaking, but you get the idea. And through their legislation too, I think since they've gone recreational, maybe $300 to $400 million in taxes from cannabis have gone into their school system. And so think about that at global scale. But ultimately, for the oscillations that change for national, we need legislation change, and then people just go out of business. Yeah. What industry do you work in?
Alcohol.
Alcohol.
So I had another kind of interesting point. At least for me to kind of rationalize the kind of growth of cannabis, I think of it kind of like the rise of craft breweries in the sense of like you have all these kind of small players. And do you see that bigger brands like Constellation in the alcohol space, do you think they're going to try to kind of buy those up, like the kind of the smaller, like fast growers?
There'll definitely be a roll up. I don't see the small players surviving very long in our industry. Between the compliance hurdles, the complexity of the supply chain, it's just expensive. And to be a small farmer today, you're not going to get the capital you need to survive. And the big players are going to just drive you right out. And it's unfortunate. There's some legislation in progress to protect them and enable them to succeed. But right now it's tough. And I'm friends with a lot of small town farmers who are like, I don't know how this is going to work. It's bad enough I got to fight nature to make my career, but now I got to fight the big boys and everyone else out there. What parallels do you see between alcohol and cannabis? I'm curious now. I'm going to flip this.
Well, at least for me to rationalize. Craft brewing, how it's gone a lot more popular in the past couple of years. You see a lot of small players and a lot of big brands like Diageo and Constellation. They've been buying up these brands like Terrapin and other ones like that. But a lot of those huge allocations of money to buy up these brands have. Some of them haven't really panned out because the space of craft brewing is so wide, and everyone has a brewery, everyone has a neighborhood spot, and so the deck is so wide. I didn't know if that was kind of like cannabis or the cannabis market, or if you're having a lot of these bigger brands that are really just kind of dominating the market and will stay like that.
So it's definitely state dependent. California is its own animal. I think in California alone we have over 300 different vape brands. That's just vapes, and so it's a lot of new millennial money coming in who want to have a sexy brand, very similar kind of like the wine industry of this is something fun I can do with my time, money in there doing that. People being entrepreneurial, the barrier to entry to have a brand in cannabis is pretty light. I don't really need to have a farm. I just need a checkbook, meet a farmer, put a box around it, bring it to market with another partner, good to go. And so there's just a lot out there like that.
Well, I will say this stuff is pretty good.
Ooh. Come on down, try it. Who said that? Want a sip?
It's just a really good aperitif. That's the best way I would put it.
Okay.
Yeah. Are you going to ask a question?
We're measuring the dose. Well,
Yeah.
no, that was my question.
All right. Now the real questions start.
Yeah, I have a question.
Cheers.
Very sweet.
Yeah, aperitif.
It's good. It's good. No, I have a question. I heard a story from your industry that there are restaurants in the United States where you can go to right now, and you don't order a glass of wine, but a puff of cannabis. No, is that true? You puff it and you can really dose it. That also relates to the question over there about overdosing. What ways we can consume cannabis products nowadays?
Well, I'll answer it in two ways. The restaurant thing, I think that's a miscommunication. I don't think I've seen one restaurant where I can order cannabis in a restaurant. No, but there do have items on the menu that might be like cannabis-infused elements that taste like the plant but don't have the THC element. So you get the flavor profile of it because it is unique. It does taste different, and some people really enjoy that taste. But in terms of form factor and how you can consume cannabis nowadays, it's joints, it's vaporizers, it's mints, it's gummy bears, it's chocolates, it's teriyaki sauce. Ultimately, it could just be raw butter. People are finding form factors every week, every month, and bringing them to market. But ultimately, you know, what's dominating market share on shelf is flower. You know, the actual commodity itself, put in a Mylar bag, sitting on shelf, is your top selling product for people to put into joints, pre-rolls, bongs, whatever. And then after that, you probably get to your gummy bears. The gummy bear form factor people just love, they identify with. It's not too sweet, something you can just pop right before bed if you need a sleep agent. So that's where we're at today.
Yeah. Do people still smoke it?
People definitely still smoke cannabis and consume cannabis. You go to any concert in California, it's around. And we're seeing a new culture shift too, where your big music festivals are now bringing in cannabis as a core component. If you look at Outside Lands in San Francisco, I think it was only last year where they opened a whole cannabis section just for consumption, selling the product and bolting it into their event experience. And we're probably going to see a lot more of that over the next couple of years as well. We talk about this stuff a lot. Yeah, true.
Maybe a question about your collaboration with Dimensional Insight.
Whoa, here we go. That's juicy.
Yeah, what do you expect from the platform in the future? How is it going to help you build the business?
I think it's going to shell us from the dynamic change we're about to see, which is our data normalization. The amount of data that's coming up for us is going to be gruesome. It's going to be filthy. And we need a partner that can help us turn that into actionable insights and information to help our promise to our customers that we can increase their sales. And we won't be able to do that unless that data is trued up at scale.
I think there are more questions over there.
More?
In the back of the room.
Do you want to come on down? All right. Yeah, God, come on down.
My name is Carey, Children's National Hospital here in DC. With the data that you're having, or with the data that you guys are harnessing, I think a huge component of this, or like the way this is moving, is healthcare workers are still in a hole, like still being left out of like what's pushing or what's moving forward, right? Most hospitals, regardless of where you are, you get drug tested. We've had offers, you know, like you sometimes have to. I have had friends who have had offers rescinded because of drug tests, even in the states where it's completely legal, right? So, what push are you guys making with the data that you have? Because at the end of the day, data is power, right? For these changes to happen, people need to see the data from guys like you. How are you? And you might not be thinking of this now. I think I'm just giving you a clue of what to think of next. But
No.
that data with healthcare, and I think it's guys like you ultimately that would have to make that push with the data that you have. And how do you integrate with healthcare with whatever your roadmap or?
In terms of supporting the healthcare industry and their need to consume, is that kind of the genesis of the question?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's actually nonprofits now specific to supporting nurses and changing legislation and policy around hospitals to make it normalized so they can consume. Because I think we can all agree in this room that nurses are heroes and they get stressed out. And the number one use case of cannabis is reducing stress. And so nonprofits are emerging now to make that change happen. With the data that I have and we're starting to harness as a community, you know, I never even thought about bridging that gap, actually. I think that's a great insight. And so I know just a nonprofit to talk to actually next week to say like, hey, do you want my data? Do you want to use it in your arguments and thinking? So thank you for that question. Yeah. Anyone else? One more, okay.
Sorry, I have to ask
Good question. There is research happening rampantly for both arguments, right? You're going to see white papers come out, peer research come out that says, hey, cannabis is great. You're going to see the peer research that says, hey, cannabis is bad. I have a son. I don't consume any cannabis in my house because I know even the residual effects might affect him, but I'm educated. I know these things. I don't do it. The masses aren't as much. And so I guess my answer there is we have to get better as an industry on choosing what is quality information and what's not. And everyone in this room is probably luckily to be educated and know what's bullshit and what's not when they read it from peer research. And so just know there's gonna be a flood of both sides and you have to choose for yourself at this point. And for me, it's a fine balance. Like I know what's not acceptable, similar to alcohol. I know not to drink and drive. But everyone in this room has just got to know what information to trust or not.